Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dearest lecturers, and my dear colleagues. I would like to welcome you all for the second session of the second day of the Investment Week 2022. Let's have a look at the lined-up sessions for this evening. First half, we will be launching and reviewing the Finance Outlook magazine. And in the second half of the evening, the Economic Forum will take place. Finance Outlook Business Magazine is another milestone of the Department of Finance to enhance industry and academic collaboration with the aim of creating a common platform to share the academic and industry insights on contemporary business issues. The magazine consists of industry insights by business professionals together with articles written by undergraduates with the guidance of our very own lecturers on the theme of Revive Sri Lanka. So now, I would like to cordially invite Ms. Sandali Sudhasinghe, Editor-in-Chief, to welcome the gathering.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Professor Ruwan Abesekara, Head of the Department of Finance, Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri, Chairman, HCP Consulting Private Limited, all the senior professors, and all the academic staff members of the Department of Finance, and my dear students. It's great pleasure for me to welcome all of you to the second session of the second day of the Investment Week 2022 launch and review of the Finance Outlook Business Magazine. First, I would really like to thank Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri, Chairman, HCP Consulting Private Limited, for accepting our invitation to review our Finance Outlook Business Magazine. So first of all, let me take you through the business magazine, and I'll give you a brief insight about our magazine. So basically, we have launched our first volume last year along with the Investment Week 2021. So the main objective or the main purpose of this Finance Outlook Business Magazine is that we wanted to create a common platform where our academics and where our corporate personalities get together and share their thoughts and ideas on contemporary issues. So as of that, we have initiated this magazine, Finance Outlook Business Magazine. And also, this magazine comprises of three main categories of articles. The first category of article is that our undergraduate has written many articles with the guidance of our academic staff members of the Department of Finance. And also, there are many articles which have written by our corporate industry personalities, and also articles written on based on the interviewed by the corporate personalities. And if I take you through this year or the current volume of, or the second volume of the Finance Outlook Business Magazine. So our theme is Revive Sri Lanka. Actually, we wanted to tag along with our Investment Week whole theme. So therefore, that is why we have selected and come up with the theme Revive Sri Lanka for our this year volume 2 of Finance Outlook Business Magazine. So actually, as you all know, now we are in a massive economic and financial crisis. So basically, we thought that it would be a great idea, and it will be a timely, necessary need in order to talk about the strategies and the solution, how we can overcome this financial and economic crisis. Therefore, we haven't been stick into one particular sector. We explored many sectors such as insurance, banking, finance, tourism, imports, exports, apparel, and many other sectors. And along with the corporate industry experts, we have come up with many strategies and solutions how we can overcome this financial and economic crisis. And I strongly believe, and I truly believe, that this Financial Outlook magazine will cater to a larger audience where they can gain their knowledge with regard to our financial and economic crisis which we are currently facing in the country right now. So, and also, before ending my speech, I would really like to thank the individuals who have supported to launch this magazine today, because there are many people behind this magazine. So first of all, I would really like to thank the authors of this magazine, including the corporate experts, and also I would really like to thank our very own academic members of the Department of Finance, and also I can't forget the Finance Student Association of the Department of Finance, and also the undergraduates of the department, and most importantly, I can't forget the editorial board, proofreaders, and also the editorial committee. And also finally, I would like to thank our sponsors of the magazine, because these are the individuals, or these are the people who are behind this magazine, and they have made this magazine a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam. So now it's time to witness the unveiling of our unveiling outcome of our department, the Finance Outlook, the magazine of the Department of Finance, University of Kelaniya. Now to give you all an insight of the Finance Outlook, we have a short video lined up next. To officially launch the volume 2 of the Finance Outlook magazine, I invite Professor Ruwan Abesekara, Head, Department of Finance, Dr. Chathura Liyanagi, Senior Lecturer, Department of Finance, accompanied by Ms. Sandali Sudhasinghe, Editor-in-Chief, Finance Outlook magazine. Thank you, sir and madam. It's always better to have feedback from an expert. So to review our Finance Outlook magazine, we have Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri with us. But unfortunately, Mr. Chaminda couldn't attend the session physically due to an unavoidable reason. But he is joining with us today through virtual Zoom platform. Mr. Kumarasiri is a senior chartered accountant, corporate trainer, leadership coach, management consultant, and a business advisor with a proven track record, holding senior leadership positions in leading local entities and multinationals. He is the founder, president of Asia Pacific Institute of Money and Entrepreneurship Development, the founder, CEO of the Human Capital Partner, the chairman, principal consultant of HCP Consulting Private Limited, independent non-executive director at Sanasa Development Bank PLC, and an advisor consultant to a few leading organizations both in the private sector and public sector. He also serves on the international panel on accounting education as the only representative from the entire South Asia. He has served on the Governing Council of CA Sri Lanka for 2 consecutive terms and currently serves on the Executive Committee of ACCA Member Network Panel. Mr. Kumarasiri possesses an array of professional and academic qualifications with numerous awards and medallions. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, United Kingdom, the Association of Accounting Technicians of Sri Lanka, and the Institute of Certified Management Accountants of Sri Lanka. He has obtained a Bachelor of Science in Accounting Special Degree with a first-class honors from the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and holds a Master of Business Administration in Finance from University of Colombo. As a leading corporate trainer as well as a business advisor, he has inspired over 500,000 individuals both in Sri Lanka and overseas. He is a sought-after resource person for financial well-being training and coaching sessions, and his areas of expertise and his clientele includes leading corporates in the country in various industries. In order to conduct the magazine review, I would like to invite Mr. Chaminda Kumarasiri, Chairman, HCP Consulting Private Limited, to give your valuable insights on the second volume of our Finance Outlook magazine. Over to you, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, the organizing committee, for inviting me for this. And I must apologize from the audience today that I met with an accident yesterday. I can see my hand, and I am not in a position to come in person, but I didn't want to miss it. And I must thank the organizing committee for making arrangements to have this as a virtual session without disappointing the audience. So I think in the list of things you have mentioned about me, more probably it was my mistake, I don't know, could not include my involvement in your faculty board as an external resource. So University of Kelaniya is not an external party to me because I'm involved in some form. First of all, let me congratulate the Department of Finance for this timely initiative and the great job you have done so far. And I also learned that it's your 10th anniversary for the association. And other congratulations for your marvelous work for over a decade. I think I have a pleasant as well as a difficult task of reviewing some of the great masterpieces, I must say, with the support of the lecturers, the students, as well as the external parties. I must first disclaim that my job here is not to audit and challenge any of these articles, because I read those articles in full and I am pretty much impressed with most of the content, and I also learned some of the interesting aspects and perspectives the writers have brought in. Just one comment on the overall magazine before I start the individual papers. The magazine is quite bulky, I must say. It's about 159 pages compared to a typical magazine or a business tablets you can see, probably because of your frequency of issuing this and you want to accommodate as many as possible. On that side, yes, it's a reasonable attempt, but on the other side, as a document, I saw it's a quite lengthy one. Of course, it contained a lot of rich content, no doubt about it. Just feedback on the overall aspect when you consider the next article or next magazine. Let me quickly go through some of the articles and my thoughts about it. I must first say that the look and feel of the magazine is professional. You have done a great job, although it's two. I think you have already issued two volumes, but you have come a long way. I think you have done a great job on that in terms of the look and feel, the professionalism, even the images, the color selections. So it is in a quite impressive state. When I look at the articles, as the editor highlighted at the beginning, there is a wider range of topics you have covered. And I'm impressed with the fact that you have given more weight to talk about the ongoing economic crisis and some of the key areas and industries we can target. And I must say at the outset that most of this content that you have given would be of immense use for the policymakers and the authorities to take into account, because I saw some of those ideas are quite novel. So I will touch upon some of those things as I move on, because we have seen most of this problem from a traditional point of view, technical point of view. Maybe we share the viewpoint of some of the high profiles, or maybe the political leaders in solving some of the problems that we had in the past. But I saw in these articles, there were certain viewpoints that are quite challenging to our conventional wisdom and the way we have looked at in the past. So therefore, it's interesting to see some of these things, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of insights from them for the policymakers and the authorities. Right. So let me now get into the content. I will take a little time to talk about each paper, but I don't intend going through every paper in detail. But wherever I have identified some points I think I must touch upon, I think I want to highlight, I will highlight on those. There are certain articles, there's nothing much I can highlight, but let me see how far I can do justice. But no offense to any of those writers, because they have done a great job. And one interesting thing I have observed here is that the lecturer-student combination, it's very interesting that you have come up with, probably I believe the content must have come from the student and the lecturer must have given the technical support and moderation, I believe. If that was the case, it would have been very interesting. Right. I don't think I need to show the screen, the magazine. I think everyone must have got the magazine, I believe. I will just go through the content, and if anyone wants to give your feedback, or if you want to clarify things, probably I'll be able to spend some time after I do my job. Right. So if you look at the first article, the technical article, I must say, apart from the other things, managing imports and export blueprint in Sri Lanka. So this article I found, mostly you talk about the statistics and what we already know in articles and some tables. But this article is quite contrary to a typical article we must get in that domain, but short article captured the essence. It talks about the strategies what we can do to improve. However, as I have seen in most of these articles, we have spoken about what has happened and what we suggest. But I would have loved if how part was discussed a little more, because even when we discuss the local context, we talk about what needs to happen. The politicians talk about what needs to happen, scholars, academic, even the professionals, we all talk about what is the ideal. But what is critical is how we drive it. So how can we guide a person or an organization to execute considering the practical realities? And I think that aspect is going to be very interesting if anyone wants to implement things. But this article captures, in a nutshell, what needs to happen. On that sense, I must say the suggestions were quite practical, but implementation guidance, if it was there, would have been better. Then I go to the next one, the improving the tourism industry with a productive approach. So I saw something interesting in this article, because I've been reading a lot of articles in the past few months about the economic recovery, and especially there was a lot of talk about tourism. And most of the writers and experts were talking about the same aspects. But I saw some interesting points in this article. I will not take a lot of time in going through, but just to highlight in the recommendations to expedite the recovery. So they highlighted the importance of expediting the approval process to facilitate tourism-related investments, which is quite necessary in the current context, because you cannot have the same approach for all the industries. And here we talk about the need is, while we encourage in the investment, how far we facilitate in terms of timing to realize those investments. And also I noted an interesting recommendation to establish an investment relations unit. That's very interesting, which we do not see, and you have picked it. And also the fact that you highlighted the importance of implementing regional and national tourism plans. We talk about promoting Sri Lanka as a country. In my view, that is not happening to the level that we expect. And you also highlight the importance, because as much as we talk about the country as a whole, it is also important to identify the diversity of this country and promote regional tourism. That is an interesting point that you have highlighted. I think these 2 points, this unit, investment relation unit, and promoting as a regional platform or regional plans, I think these 2 are going to be welcomed by the authorities if you can make an impact on those. So there are a few other aspects, but these are the 2 things that I got my attention. Then we talk about the next article, that is on inflation and impact on the general public in Sri Lanka. So now this article, I'm not finding fault with the writers, but what I'm saying is, in this article, compared to the rest, it's more towards technical analysis. You have identified the practices, how it is calculated. I would say it is more of an educative article for a person who needs to understand how it is done and what has happened. So in that sense, especially for an unfinanced person, a person who doesn't have that economic background, this is a good read. At the same time, I would like to suggest for the writers, as much as we talk about inflation as a problem and we talk about how to tackle inflation, we talk about the consequences of inflation. At the same time, isn't it a good idea to challenge the modalities we use? Do we use the right approach in calculating the inflation? Do we have different methods, or is the formula or whatever the theory that we follow, can we challenge it and see, no, this is not the way to calculate the inflation, there are other ways of looking at it? Because we always see the challenge, right? Sometimes we see some experts saying whatever the officially published numbers are not the correct numbers, but the real inflation is something else. There's debate on that as well. From an academic point of view, if we can bring in that element in some form, I think it would have been much helpful. But what you have captured, I believe, is in this context is sufficient, I believe, for the magazine. This is just a suggestion to improve going forward. And next article is about how to overcome the current economic crisis of Sri Lanka via the export-oriented culture. This is a quite comprehensive article, I must say. You start with the traditional technical or statistical analysis by showing the status of this industry and the numbers, segments, everything. That's quite technical. But I like the solutions part, right? Because the solution part you have captured quite well, because that is what I think is relevant for a reader or even for any authority. We all know the problem, as I mentioned earlier. If we can be of any help for the implementers or the authorities to guide them as to how we can implement and what are the areas we need to pay attention to. And in that sense, you have captured it well, what to be done to prevail over the crisis. So, yeah, some of the suggestions are quite common, but at the same time, you have indicated the necessity of having a policy framework, which we all talk about. But one of the things that I like very much in your suggestions is, which I also personally believe, is the fact that the central bank must be independent. The monetary policy has to be handled independently without political interference, which I always talk about whenever I get an opportunity to talk about the subject, especially if you look at India, how independent the RBI is. I think this is something that I like the way you have highlighted it. And also, you have beautifully articulated the requirement and the way forward by quoting two very interesting case studies, Japan and Bangladesh. Right? So very interesting. So this includes both the story and some factual aspects to justify the case. I must congratulate the writers here. So you have, it's kind of a technical article plus a good story. So when we write articles, we follow different approaches, right? It can be a technical analysis with jargon and facts, and we can also explain certain things in a story or layman's language, because stories can sell the point much efficiently than technical jargon, especially when you address the layman's or the common man. So in that sense, this article captured both worlds nicely. Right. Let me go to the next one. The innovations in the local apparel sector that could help drive the country forward. This article, again, is a short article, but although it is short, I found that you have addressed the most important element in the industry. Because here you have identified the most important issue, that is the dependency on raw material. Right? Our garment industry is heavily dependent on import materials. So that is a big risk that we face. And in your article, you have identified why and how you can have substitutes for those import materials. So yes, of course, this could be extended further, because you have just identified the solution, but then the authorities or the parties would want to understand how best we can implement it. So how to do the rest of it, how to create that materials, and you have already identified the challenges that you might face. But this kind of a, I would say, thought-provoking articles. One, when you read this, get that spark or the idea, yeah, we have a solution. And then you encourage them to go further and probably identify how to do that. Therefore, that's interesting in that sense. Then the next article is about the remittances. Right, remittances vital for foreign exchange in Sri Lanka. So this article is more in terms of, again, I must say, an educative kind of an article. You explain the reader what do you mean by foreign remittances, the role it plays, and statistics to explain the situation in Sri Lanka and why it is important for a country. And then the most important part, again, for me in this case is, as I always say, the solutions, how we can increase the remittances. And you have given a list of things, right? And interestingly, you have given a very interesting point there. You always talk about banning the informal channels, right? Banning the informal channels. Instead of that, you suggest, why can't we learn from them, right? Why those informal channels are efficient, why people still go for it? Is there a learning that we can get and then improve the formal channels using that? And how you tackle the attitude aspect, the mindset part of it. We talk about the technical things, the technology and the regulatory aspect. How we inculcate that mindset among people, why you need to remit your earnings to Sri Lanka. Interesting aspects. So apart from the rest, I identified that aspect as a interesting part, right? Then I move to the next article. Road to economic resilience through capital market development. Again, I see that you talk about the importance of the capital market, the global context, Sri Lankan context. That's quite traditional at the beginning. And then we come to the important part again, how we improve. So I agree with most of the suggestions you have given. One of the key things that you highlight here, it's not, I'm not denying your suggestion, but I have a different viewpoint on that. One of the key things you highlight here is that investor education, right? We must educate people about the stock market and the capital market and all that. I can see there's a lot of effort from the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Colombo Stock Exchange to educate people. Even I myself also attend as a resource person. But one of the things that I want to stress here is that as much as we educate people, how far we make an attempt to streamline the process, eliminate the malpractices, negativities, because we talk about market manipulators. We talk about behind the scene influences, invisible arms. And we also talk about how you protect the investor. So as much as we talk about educating people, can't we also look at that aspect? And also, I quite agree with your point on the need to revisit the regulations. Because Sri Lanka, however much we talk about the share market, we are still not at an efficient level. And our market is small. It can be manipulated by a significant player. We have a few large players, unlike developed markets, where even a large player cannot make a big impact on the market because a large player is small in the market. So how we look at that aspect. So interesting point. I quite agree with your suggestion, except the areas that if you all can, if you could think about that aspect I mentioned earlier, would have been better, but good article again. So how can Sri Lanka get out of the debt crisis with the help of International Monetary Fund? A hot topic. When I went through the article, I realized that the writers have been very careful in using their language, not to hurt the parties, not to be in the extremes. When you give your views, you have highlighted the background to the problem, you have given the story, why we went into the problem, and you have given a synopsis or a summary of what has taken place up to now. Again, it's a good educative article for a person who's clueless about what has happened with IMF, what's happening. So you have given a good synopsis about it, so a person can understand where are we on this. But again, my doubt in this article is, your topic is, how can Sri Lanka get out of the debt crisis with the help of International Monetary Fund? So that's the topic. So my doubt is to what extent that element in your topic has come out in the article. You have discussed the problem, you have discussed the status. So whether we need little more space in the article to talk about how part of it, or do justice to your topic. So that's something that I have observed. But again, from a content point of view, it is good. The connection between the content versus topic is the doubt I have. The next article is about the tax reforms in Sri Lanka towards shaping our future. Another good article where you talk about the problem, the historical problem from the beginning. An interesting point that you have highlighted at the beginning is for a reader, you give the message during those days when kings were ruling the countries, our system has been much more efficient in terms of tax administration. You indirectly give a signal to the authorities. If we can go back to the king's era of administration, our tax system would have been much more efficient than this. Because however much we talk about the tax rates and the revenue, I personally believe the biggest problem we have is more than the rates, is the administration. Right, so you have tackled, you have hit the nail on the head, I believe, right, in your article. You have handled that part well, and you have identified it. And at the same time, you have given a synopsis of what has happened during last couple of years with certain decisions taken by the government, how it has impacted the tax revenue and the rest of it. And you have also given a synopsis of the recent tax proposals. That's all good. And also you have finally given your suggestions as to how you can improve the tax revenue as well as the efficiency aspect of it. And I'm not sure whether you didn't want to cover this part or whether you wanted to downplay on this part in your article. Another element that I would always highlight when we talk about this topic is the corruption within the system. Right? We also have some allegations for the administrators or the people within the system for not doing the part, and also the tax base. So how far we have captured the liable parties to the net. There are certain parts of the society who are outside the tax net, and how best we can bring them. Because if we broad base the tax net, I think we don't need to punish too much on the rate. That's my personal feeling, but it's always a point for argument. But anyway, it's a comprehensive article, I must say. You have captured a lot of good areas. Then we talk about managing Sri Lanka's foreign reserves. Again, another hot topic. Now, there was a similar article before. We talk about the foreign remittances and all that. One interesting thing I must highlight in this article is the flow of your article, right? So you have followed a different strategy in articulating your story, your fact pattern. After giving a brief intro, you jump to the solutions, right? So you have given 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the topics, right? And you have altogether 6 points. It's a kind of a macro level paper, I must say, without going into nitty-gritties. You have highlighted at a macro level a helicopter view, 6 suggestions, holistic and covering wider spectrum, right? You talk about foreign exchange rate variation, then you talk about external debt restructuring, then you come to IMF, economic stabilization aspect of it, then the export, improve export proceeds and import restriction, and then you talk about regulatory framework, especially how you control the informal market, and then how you improve the inflows through tourism. So it's a kind of a holistic article. It's a good read, I must say. Then we move to the next article, how to navigate your business in the right path during the economic crisis. So this article, I must say, if I were to write an article on the same topic, I would write 90% of the things that you have captured in your article, because it reflects my thought process as well in terms of the point you have captured, because I've been in the entrepreneurship space for the last several years. I'm currently heavily involved in that. When I look at the points you have highlighted, I cannot disagree with any of this point, right? Because interestingly, you have clearly highlighted, apart from the other points, whenever the SMEs or the businesses struggle, one of the things even the government is also pushing is credit facilities, right? They insist the banking system to grant more credits, coming up with various schemes, but it is a double-edged sword, right? That's why you have highlighted that can be your worst enemy at times like this. Therefore, you have tackled the point in the right side without encouraging them for more debt. You are giving the right perspective of the matter, and you have highlighted how you use marketing strategies, right? Again, I quite agree with you. Most of the organizations, when you are in trouble, there are two budgets that they cut: marketing budget and training budget. So in my view, those are the two areas you need to invest more during a crisis for obvious reasons. And you highlighted it very well, right? Then budget tracking, yes, very important. And because this is an area that we need to improve as a country, lack of proper financial record keeping and discipline. So you have handled that. So likewise, I will not go through the entire thing. So you have tackled all the critical elements. And I must say again, the points you have highlighted are non-traditional. If you go and read 10 articles on the same subject, you can see the things that you generally see. Because most of the time, when we look at an article of this sort, you can clearly see whether the person is outside the system or within the system. Because people outside the system who do not have pulse about the real grassroots issues, they just go by theoretical arguments and gut feeling, and they come up with a list of things. And that is where even the government and even some foreign donor agencies, when they come to the scene to support SMEs and entrepreneurs, the first thing they talk about is funding and loans. But if you really go down to the grassroots, you can see the real issues are different, and you have captured most of them quite nicely. So I think that's a very good article that captured the real grassroots level issues. Then the future development through SMEs by the contribution of women entrepreneurship. Again, on entrepreneurship. So I generally get attracted to this kind of article because that is my pet area as well. So this article, I must say, I must invite all of you to read if you haven't read this article, because this article, again, is a unique one. As I mentioned you earlier in certain articles, this article, the flow and the way you articulate things, I must say there's one element that this article brings out very clearly, that is inspiration. Right? So when you want to promote entrepreneurship and encourage entrepreneurs, inspiration is key, right? First you inspire them and then you guide them. Without inspiration, you can't guide entrepreneurs. So this article clearly gives that aspect with the stories they have unveiled, right? Some known characters and unknown characters. So start with Penelope, and then you talk about the Odell story, the soap stories, right? All these are inspiring stories. So as I told you at the beginning, you cannot guide or support an entrepreneur without inspiration. You first inspire, then guide. And this article has followed the same approach. You have first given the stories to inspire. With that inspiration, with that awakened mindset, you talk about or you read about the technical part. There you talk about the skills and various other things that you need to have, how you get there. So first, when people read about inspiring stories, the next thing that comes to their mind is, how can I become like them? Right? So then we must guide them how you get there. These are the things you need. This is how they have done. These are the areas you need to focus on. So this article has done the same thing. So it's a quite logical and scientific as well as psychologically masterpiece, I must say. It has tackled very well. If you read this article, you'll feel it. Then we go to supply chain, and it's all reviving Sri Lanka. So I think you have got the right person, right, to talk about it. So you don't need to introduce what this organization is all about. They are one of the giants in the field. And then Shahara talking about this subject. This is experience sharing. So I will not take a lot of time because this is kind of an interview. But again, this is more in terms of how you practically implement things. If you read this article, you will realize that in her responses, she challenges some of the theoretical models, the way they have handled the matters. Because that is what we call, when we run businesses, you can't be book smart. You have to be street smart. You need to deal with the real grassroots or ground realities. Sometimes books don't give you the answers. So these kind of characters will tell you how they have handled their matters. So good interview. Then we talk about the port city, very interesting as well as controversial topic for the last couple of years, because on one side, there's a debate whether it was a correct decision to have that kind of a massive project, that can we afford it? Can we make it happen? Can we realize the merits? And on the other side, there's a lot of talk about the merits we can get out of it. So therefore, this article, I must say, first explains how this project was begun and giving a history, so that any person who has no idea about the project first gets an idea. You internalize the person to the project first, and then you talk about how we capitalize on it. There are a lot of interesting points highlighted. Again, it's an interview. At the same time, one of the things that I did not see from the interviewer's point of view. At times you have to be devil's advocate as well, right? At times, whenever you have an interview with anyone, you must also challenge. You must also be the nasty person, right? And you try to put the person in a difficult corner and see what the outcome is, right? You play the opposition's role at some point. So then you can see how best the person comes up with the argument. So that will also give a balanced view of the fact. Otherwise, generally when we interview a person, always there is a bias towards the positivity, right? how we also get the negativity out, or how we also see the person's response towards the negativity is also an important element if we can get involved during our interviews. So the next one is investing, sorry, ESG, investing, environmental, social, and governance, ESG. This is a timely topic again, because today we have greater emphasis on SDGs and the environmental sustainability, all of them. So you have got an interesting personality to talk about it. So I will not talk too much about it. Again, it's an interview. A lot of good things you have captured there. Now, the interesting point is how we deal with the cost benefit aspect, because ESG is a good or an attractive topic to have, but when you talk about implementing the initiatives, most of the organizations think twice because there is a cost involved. So how we handle that part, and he has suggested some of the strategies, but you can have further coverage on the subject. Then I go to the next one, the way of handling monetary policy as a solution for the prevailing economic crisis in Sri Lanka. I must tell, again, this is a highly technical area, because this talks about jargon, and a person needs to have some kind of a literacy or background about these technicalities to comprehend some of these arguments. But my take on this is, these are opinions, right? You have interviewed the people, so these are opinions. So sometimes you may be able to factually prove something, but in terms of challenging opinions, I think we have to be little more ethical in that, right? If a person holds an opinion, you can't go and just say, no, you are wrong, unless you challenge on facts. But I think that the interviewees have given a balanced view anyway, because they didn't want to hit the authorities hard either, but they have also unveiled the vitals during their discussion. Then I go to the next article, that is cybersecurity in finance and what you should know. Again, this is a kind of a awareness, because this article, the main take on me is the presenter is trying to convince the reader the importance of paying attention to these aspects. Sometimes the organizations ignore this aspect. So that is very important in this, so that you can, if you want to convince a person why you need to pay attention to and how critical is that, this is a very good discussion or an interview that captures the essence. Then we have sustainable finance, green bonds, and way forward. Now, this article I see again explains the subject in a easy to understand manner, because you use examples, you explain the practices, and also, as I explained earlier, there was another article. It's a mix of technical content and impactful storytelling, I must say. Then it's easy to grasp, although it is technical. And also you highlighted the importance of the green finance taxonomy and where we are. So no critiques about it. It's again short and sweet article that captures the essence. Then I have another article on Sri Lanka's recovery from the current economic crisis. We had a similar article before. Now the focus here is on the insurance industry. Now the bottom line of this article, I must say, the writer is beautifully articulating the importance of insurance, and he's trying to convince the reader why you should do away, right? Why you should forget, why you should change your mindset if you have a negative perception about this. Because insurance sector, insurance sometimes we see as a negative thing. Some people consider it as a necessary evil, right? I must take an insurance because I have no other way, because I have done a survey, because I have, in fact, I was invited to do a lecture for a leading insurance organization. Then I did some research. I noted that in Sri Lanka, the vehicle insurance market is run by the police, not by the insurance companies. Because if you look at majority of the people try to get a third party, not because they want an insurance, but because it is illegal to run your vehicle on the road without a third party. And if you take the comprehensive insurance, it is those companies, as their policy says, they take, or if you are on loan or lease, you have to take because it's a policy. But when you have a choice, only a little portion of the population takes a comprehensive insurance. So there's a different mindset. There's a negative mindset towards this insurance. Now, this article is a good read for people to understand the contribution of the sector to the economy and build kind of a positive mindset about this subject. Then we have the next article, Navigating the Turbulent Times, a Risk Management Perspective. Again, it's coming from a leading organization, practitioner who have seen the realities. So I must say, again, more than the theory, it is a factual elaboration of practical aspects. And it doesn't have much stories though, but giving a kind of a convincing content with facts for a reader. Quite a lengthy document, but I found it again informative, I must say. So I think I have covered the entire magazine. I don't think I missed anything. The overall conclusion I can make is you have covered a wider spectrum of disciplines, industries, and this magazine is a mix of different styles. You can see, but look at some of the magazines you see in from the professional bodies, at ACCA, CAA, or various other bodies. You can see their style, right? Although you can see different writers or different contributors, they sometimes maintain some kind of a format. But in this case, you have not done that. You have allowed each of the writer or the party to have their own way of writing the articles. And therefore, there is some diversity in it. And I like very much the fact that you have given more weight on the economic revival, and there were a lot of good points for the policymakers, as I told you. And there were a couple of interesting articles on entrepreneurship as well. So I must congratulate all the writers, the committee who has led this, and of course the lecturers and the others who have advised, supported, guided, mentored the writers. A good job overall, although it is coming off from a university with the contribution of undergraduates. I saw some professional content in that. And as I told you, one last suggestion from my side for the committee, there are a lot of good content in this, especially for the economic revival. If you can at least extract those relevant articles or relevant areas and make a submission to the authorities, I'm sure there is some solid suggestions for them to consider to address the current economic crisis. So thank you very much for having me for this important and challenging task. I hope I did some justice. No, don't take me wrong for the critics. I was just giving again my opinion. You may agree or may not agree, but I was just trying to give a different perspective for certain things. Thank you very much for having me again, and all the best with your rest of the proceedings in the event.
Thank you, sir, for that constructive feedback and for guiding us by reviewing the magazine. And sir, we really appreciate your commitment on this regard. Sir, we wish you a speedy recovery. So with that, we mark the conclusion of the second half of the second day of the Investment Week 2022. We would like to take this opportunity to remind our partners for Investment Week 2022. Our main sponsor, Colombo Stock Exchange, creates wealth and value. Our silver sponsor, Hema's Consumer Brands, make health food living happen. Our global knowledge partner, CFA Sri Lanka, the leading body that administers advanced investment analysis. Our corporate partners are Aitken Spence Maritime, one of the leading freight, shipping, and logistics providers in the country. Eastern Traders and Winchem Agricare Private
Banking on the entrepreneurial spirit of the Sri Lankan people, the Colombo Stock Exchange builds on a share trading tradition that has existed in Sri Lanka for over a century. The business of share trading that commenced with plantation companies in 1896 continues to thrive today as a matured and vibrant stock market that mobilizes capital flows of over 300 billion rupees a year.
We have leveraged on the combined experience and expertise in the industry to leapfrog on multiple fronts as we look towards a possible re-rating of the market upwards. What is on the cards are major infrastructure developments, new product introductions, widening of the investor base, building a sustainable business model, and most importantly, working with the government and the regulator, the SEC, as a pivotal point for capital raising.
Today, as the operator of the stock market in Sri Lanka, we offer state-of-the-art pre-trade, trade and post-trade platforms. Our stakeholder base also includes the regulator, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, over 700,000 local and foreign institutional and individual investors, members of staff of the stock exchange, and other market intermediaries who go and make up the ecosystem of the Sri Lankan capital market.
Stock exchange operations around the globe have evolved significantly, and so has the CSE. Our trading operations, which started with an open outcry system and investors visiting the public trading floor, today is delivered through a state-of-the-art multi-asset class automated trading system and a central depository system. CSE has engaged in a drive to digitalize all stakeholder touchpoints in the stock market, enabling end-to-end connectivity electronically.
CSE over the years have invested in technology because we understand a robust, secure and cutting-edge technology is the backbone of a modern exchange.
Establishing regulatory readiness to navigate through a Sri Lankan business landscape that has changed substantially since CSE was first established has been a material focus.
Regulation must evolve to support the development plan or the development strategy of the exchange, and that is something that we have always followed. Compared to the inception of the Colombo Stock Exchange 35 years ago, we have been able to transform our listing framework to make it really attractive for issuers to come and raise capital by listing their securities through the Colombo Stock Exchange. And for this purpose, we have been able to diversify our listing platforms and listing boards, giving them various listing options to benefit. In terms of overall regulation, our focus has always been investor protection, creating and maintaining a fair and orderly market, and also facilitating capital formation.
The CSE has taken decisive steps to diversify from a single product market to one that offers multiple products. We believe the new SEC Act will be an important development in covering regulatory changes required to continue to safeguard investor rights.
The investor base in the Sri Lankan stock market has grown steadily, and measures taken by CSE to increase the retail investor base and foreign investment fund flows rapidly to create a vibrant securities market have been focused and consistent. We have used multiple strategies to attract local and foreign investors. The Invest Sri Lanka series has been effective in taking the message of our stock market and opportunities globally, and in attracting foreign fund flows into the country. As we look ahead, CSE envisions to play a competitive role and be among the leading regional markets, harnessing our key strengths of the established infrastructure and the reputation built.
We will continue our journey towards success, and we value our stakeholders' confidence in us, standing unaltered.
Colombo's Stock Exchange, a transformative past, a vibrant future.
In 1948, Hemas started with a simple intent: to make healthful living happen across the communities we serve. For over 7 decades, we have sought to offer world-class, affordable consumer products, medicines, healthcare, and mobility solutions. Across our consumer brands, Hemas is a leader in most categories in which we are present. Our hair oil brand is a market leader in Bangladesh. Hemas has always sought to be at the forefront of delivering best-in-class healthcare and medicines. We are the leading importer and distributor of medicines at private retail. Through our EU GMP-compliant pharmaceutical plant, we are the largest manufacturer of oral solid dosage forms of medicines in the country. Hemas Hospital is a growing hospitals and laboratory chain, providing affordable healthcare to the emerging middle-income customer. We have always believed in the potential of the next generation and have worked towards creating an inclusive world where no child is left behind. Our focus has always been to ensure that the needs of the communities across our nation are met. At Hemas, we believe that every Sri Lankan deserves a better tomorrow, to live a life filled with daily moments of joy and, most importantly, an opportunity to thrive and grow. In our onward journey, we will continue to invest in diverse and passionate teams, create meaningful offerings, champion a more inclusive world, and positively impact all our stakeholders. Hemas, making healthful living happen for over 7 decades.
Hope to see you in the third session, which will be a discussion on how the financial services industry can emerge and persist through the current economic crisis. Our panelists for the Economic Forum are Mr. Chandana Aludgama, CEO, Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation Limited, Mr. Thimal Pereira, CEO, DFCC Bank PLC, Mr. Dimantha Matthew, Head of Research, First Capital Holding, Mr. Kusal Javadana, Deputy Managing Director, Alliance Finance Company PLC, and the forum will be moderated by Dr. Ruvani Fernando, Senior Lecturer, Department of Finance. Hope to see you all at 5 p.m. Thank you.